Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here at this conference, and I'm really looking forward to talking to all the participants. It's a Bangalore is raining, so let's start with this. I think many of you are coming in from different parts, at least of Bangalore, but maybe also other cities which are also raining. We see that this is one of the wettest years that we have had in a very long time. And what this tells us at a time when we have just finished the Conference of Parties event on climate change, the international meeting that was held in Glasgow very recently, tells us that climate change and issues of sustainability are not future issues. Delhi schools were closed for an entire week because of pollution last week, right? Children are not able to breathe. Older people are not able to breathe and going into hospitals with problems. Because of climate change, flooding, we have other issues. Because of heat waves, we have issues. Because human beings have interfered with nature, we have problems like the COVID crisis, which set us all back by about 2 years, the whole world. What I'm trying to say is sustainability is such an urgent problem that we are not able to deal with sustainability with the rest of the world without solving sustainability. People used to say that India is a developing country, we need to first attend to issues of development, poverty, alleviation, getting India developed. Then we can deal with sustainability, then we can deal with the environment. But I think what we're realizing now is it's all intertwined. We can't deal with education without the environment. We can't deal with breathing properly, having clear lungs and taking a normal breath without the environment. We can't deal with mental health issues, hanging out with our loved ones like we used to in this environment because of the things we have done. So sustainability is very urgent. On the other hand, we are not able to deal with sustainability the way we have, the way we should be doing it. We should be on a war footing tackling issues of sustainability everywhere. But we are not, because people don't understand this. So why sustainability in education, you are asking? This is why sustainability in education, I think, because we need to let everybody know why we need to deal with sustainability education on a war footing, right? So if somebody can start with my slides, please. Thank you so much. So the next slide. The next slide, please. Yeah. What is sustainability? Now, there are so many different definitions of sustainability, and part of the big problem with this is whose definition do you take? So just let's pause for a few seconds. You tell me what, let's just think about what is your definition of sustainability. Anyone who wants to type into the chat box, please type in what is your definition of sustainability. Banks, for instance, talk about sustainability of loans. And what they mean is, can the person repay? It's completely financial definition of sustainability, right? So different groups talk about sustainability in different ways. And I see Ananti saying the capacity to be self-sufficient. That's also a very valid definition. Without restriction, another very good one. Anyone else who wants to type in what your definitions of sustainability are? A long-term solution. See, we're getting different things. One is saying you should not destroy anything. One is saying you should be able to be self-sufficient. Another person is saying it's the long-term. And they are all aspects of sustainability. They're all very integral to it. If I think of my definition of sustainability, my way of thinking of it is the health and the well-being of the planet Earth, which is our only planet right now. I mean, Elon Musk may have gone to space, or anybody, Jeff Bezos has gone to space, but this is the reality is we are on this planet. This is the only planet we have, and we can't all abandon ship, right? So we must act with responsibility, as Padma says, for this planet. So for me, it's the health and well-being of the planet. But what does that planet mean? It means everybody on it. It means the people, it means the animals, it means the plants. And it means making sure that they are imperishable. Shailen, you're absolutely right. So this is a very broad definition of sustainability. But, look at, again, words are very important in education. We're all using different words. We all mean something similar. So we need to get at this a little more if we want to get into education. Can we change the next slide? Yeah. So for instance, you have people who ask questions like these, and these are different thoughts that people have. I asked you to define sustainability. But if you talk about questions about sustainability that people have, some people say is technology a solution to sustainability? Some people feel like you have the right app, you can get everybody to use public transport, and that's more sustainable. Others feel no, technology always is bad for sustainability because, look at smartphones, for instance, you have to mine minerals for that, you destroy the earth, and so technology is not good for sustainability. Some say we must conserve pristine nature. Okay, pristine nature as in forests which don't have any people in them. Throw the people out of the forest, protect the wildlife. That's the only way, because people are harmful. Others say no, if you have Adivasi communities, indigenous forest communities, they are part of the forest. Just like an animal or a plant is part of the forest, these people are part of the forest. It's us people who are in cities who should be out of the forest, but Adivasi communities should be allowed to be in the forest. Then, which is right? Each has a different perspective. The thing is, your assumptions in there are different. Either you say human beings are bad, or you think all human beings are not the same. Or, people might say, stop extracting groundwater. Bore wells are bad. Technology is bad. Others might say it's because of the bore wells that India's green revolution happened. It's because of that we feed our people. And so if you don't extract water from the bore wells, how are we going to drink? How are we going to grow our crops? We have to extract from bore wells. I'm just giving you examples of common sustainability debates to tell you that at the back of this debate is an underlying question that we are all thinking about from each other's point of view. So if we can go to the next question. Sita, I see you pointed in the chat box a very important definition, which is the standard definition of sustainability in the Stockholm conference and the Rio conference when it was first defined at a global scale. It's development that meets the needs of the present generation. Okay, so which is why we're talking about, and this is sustainable development. This is not sustainability, but it's the kind of development which means that present generations can move out of poverty, have a good life, but in their moving out of poverty and developing good life for themselves, you don't destroy the environment to the point that our children and our grandchildren cannot do the same, right? So that's another definition of sustainable development. But again, when I come back to education, the problem that happens is when we're trying to break this down into actionable pieces. What do we mean by this? Each of us means different things. And that is really frames. And so what I mean by a frame is, think of if you were looking at the world through spectacles and one of you had red colored frames, you had blue colored frames, one of you had green colored frames. You'd all see the same world differently because you are emphasizing certain things. You are not looking at certain things. So the frames, similarly, all of us have mental frames when we view the world, when we use sustainability. And you can see that in the different things. Some of you are looking at long-term solutions. Some of you are looking about action with responsibility. One is looking at imperishability. Somebody is looking at coexistence. Someone is looking at the essence of life, as Suju is saying. These are all we are all using different frames. So the first thing in sustainability definition, education is what are the frames we should use? And next slide. Yeah. So the most common framing you will see is what you call a three-legged stool. They will say sustainability has three components. You have the economic component. You need to be financially sustainable. You have the ecological component. You should not destroy ecology and the environment. And you need to be socially sensitive. So you should look at social components. But it seems like it's A plus B plus C. Let's get the economics right. Let's get the ecology right. Let's get the societal part right. And we will be sustainable. That fails because these are independent things. I mean, they treat them as independent and you can't add them up. They're actually all integrated part of the same web. So we at Azim Premji University, which is where I am from, we run a very popular online sustainability education course. And we prefer a different framing. We call it the 3 Fs of sustainability. So can we move to the next? Can you come down? Yeah. So we have 3 Fs and I'll explain these in greater detail. Finitude, fairness, fragility. Okay, so for now, please just remember these 3 words and I'll go into them. So can I have the next slide? Next slide, please. Yeah. Can you just scroll down one more? Yeah. Right. No, up. Yeah. So what is finitude? See, we tend to think that you look at any economics discussions. Is India's economy doing well? Yes or no? Because we are defining economy doing well as you have 8% growth in GDP. Every year, if you want an 8% growth in your GDP, but your planet is finite. There are more people, we are all consuming more, and we want more economic growth, but you don't have more water. You don't have more oxygen. You have more cars that pollute. You have more industries that pollute our rivers. Right? So we can't have infinite growth, either economic growth or population growth or growth of the resources we consume, how many clothes we buy, how many expensive holidays we take, how much water we consume, because our planet is finite. So that's why finitude. Okay? And this is very obvious for some kinds of things. We know that we'll run out of coal. We'll run out of natural gas. Okay? We'll run out of fresh water at some point. But we are not so sure about things like land. So I give you an example. We are talking about renewable energy. We say India will keep growing. We move to solar energy. But solar batteries require land to put those batteries on. If you go to places like Pavgada, which is in the border of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, you will see that there are large areas of solar in dry land. And what that does is it increases the heat, because solar, the glass is there, it reflects heat. And so what happens is the farmers around, their crops are getting affected by solar. So solar, it's not like India can continue to grow. We just need to move from coal to solar. Solar also has finitude problems. Solar batteries, electric cars. Let's take electric cars. Okay, India wants to move to electric cars, and we should. But if we want to keep growing the number of electric cars we have, beyond a point, we are not going to have the minerals that are required to run the electric cars. So everything is a finite resource, and the world is finite. We can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. Okay? So that's the first part of sustainability that we must think of. Next slide, please. The second is you can't think of finitude without fairness, because let's say Bangalore has a drought. I know it's difficult to think of Bangalore as a drought now because it's raining everywhere. But it was true that in the summer last year we were thinking about where the water is coming from. Right? So if you say Bangalore is running out of water, who is running out of water? Most of us in this conference, we can buy bottled water. We can buy tankers. Maybe household budget will pinch a little bit. Tankers will become, instead of 750 rupees, 1000 rupees, 1500 rupees. But we can buy a tank. What about somebody in the slum? They will run out of water. So when we say who is the resource finite for? It's not finite for the wealthy. It is finite for the poor. So if you don't think of fairness, you can't understand sustainability. Right? Next slide. Come down, please. Yeah. So there are two parts of it. You remember there was people who said future generations, and two people talked about that in the definition. So one component of fairness is within this same generation. Like I said, people who live in apartments as opposed to people who live in slums. The second is people of the future generations, children who have not been born, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. If the rivers dry, if there is no Kaveri because we have used all the water of the Kaveri, what will they drink? If there is no clean air because we have destroyed all the trees around, what will they breathe? So is also fairness between generations. While this generation has to improve, we can't affect the lives of future generations. So there's two parts of fairness. And if I can have the next slide, look at this. If if India's land was divided by India's wealth, 1% of India would own 49% of our land. And 50% of our people would be living on 4.5%, a tiny fraction of land. You see the unfairness here. It's so obvious. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. Every year it gets worse. The global statistics are the same. So you can't think of sustainability without thinking about fairness. Fairness is a part of sustainability, right? We can't think of economic growth without saying who gets the economic growth. Zomato shares are doing really well, but delivery boys in Zomato are getting squeezed constantly. They are the ones who have accidents, who don't earn money, so that people who have invested in Zomato on the stock market can do it. So there's a fairness question. Next slide, please. Yeah, the rich are getting richer at a faster pace. And you'll see that India is one of the most unequal countries in terms of economic wealth. Next slide. And the third F, what is fragility? Fragility just means that things are interconnected. And what that means is, for instance, let's say a river can take waste from a small village and it can naturally regenerate itself. But the small village grows into large Bengaluru. And Bengaluru sends all of its sewage into the lakes and rivers. They will collapse. Or Delhi, the Yamuna will collapse. So things are interconnected, and because of that, our social impacts feed into ecology. Ecology feeds into social impacts. Right? So things are interconnected, and therefore, if that's what you think about when you think of fragility. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. And this is why we have issues like Belandur Lake. Belandur Lake, this is a good example. It froths every year because so much from industries, from medical, hospitals, from apartments, everything goes into Belandur Lake. The froth comes, people get affected, and yet large, expensive apartments continue to be built on the side of Belandur Lake. So the social and the ecological is very interconnected. And just by building better drainage systems or cleaning up Belandur Lake once, we will not fix this problem. We have to think of it as a system, think of all the connections, and then fix the location of the industry. Make sure that the apartments clean their own water. Make sure that the lakes that feed Belandur are connected. Make sure that the water that goes out of Belandur is well treated. Make sure that the villages around Belandur, the children there get clean drinking water. That connection is part of sustainability. Next slide. Yeah. So sustainability has 3 Fs: finitude, fairness, fragility. Now, what people don't realize is all of these can't be addressed at the same time. Because unfortunately, what happens is, if you try and address one, you will have a problem with the other. Take an example of, let's say, a lake where a slum has taken up a place on the lake and part of the lake bed is taken up by the slum. Or an apartment has built on the drain of the lake. To protect the lake, you must remove the apartment or remove the slum. But that impacts fairness. Because those are people, they built those areas, they didn't know that they were not supposed to build there. It was not their fault. So you ruin people's lives to protect the lake. This is a challenge we have very often. You must, to go forward on one, you slide back on one. But the thing is, we must acknowledge this and find ways to work with it together. So can you find alternate places for the people who have built on the lake bed and compensate them in some way for it, right? So the reason to be transparent about these 3 F's is if we don't, we say we are moving forward on sustainability, but we don't acknowledge the problem. And this is something you will see in the newspaper often. Some protected area is done very well because it's thrown out people. One group will say that. Another newspaper will report saying human rights violation. The Adivasi communities have been thrown out of the park because their frames are different. What we are saying is put the same frames, make it clear, and then you can find a resolution. If it's hidden in the back of our heads, we'll never find a solution. Okay. So this framing of the 3 F's, we have taught now for about the past 6 years, I think, to 12 different cohorts. There are people from media, there are school and college students, there are corporate workers, there are government people, there are journalists, there are homemakers, there are people working on solid waste management, people working with NGOs. So many people have benefited from this kind of way of thinking of framing, and they tell us that this sustainability education has been very valuable. Next slide, please. This helps us understand a tug of war between, for instance, should India go along the path of economic growth? Should India look at conservation? Should India go at in terms of social justice? It is a tug of war, and this is why it's difficult to solve. Very often we think very simply that, look, sustainability is just about teaching people that environment is important. It's not just that. It's really sometimes a difficult choice one has to make on which direction do we move. Okay. Next slide. Now, how do we move from such an understanding to action? Because why are we doing sustainability education? Because we want some change to be happen on the ground. Most discussions of sustainability action are very simplistic, aimed at the individual. You should ride a cycle. You should plant a tree. You should compost your garbage. You should stop drinking bottled drinks. You should take a cloth bag to the market instead of plastic bags. But if we followed this, all of us followed this, will the world change? No. 90 companies are estimated to have caused 2/3 of global warming. 90 companies. If we all took a plastic bag to the market, cloth bags to the market, we will reduce 3% of Bangalore's trash, maybe even less. So we should not take plastic, we should plant trees, we should compost our trash, but we need to go beyond individual action to try and compel the companies to change, to make government put regulations on the companies. So we have to go beyond individual to thinking of systems, to thinking at larger scales, to think of communities. So sustainability education should really take on the task of addressing action. I'll give you one very good example. For instance, there's a small town in Tamil Nadu where the district collector worked with a college, and what the girls in the college did was, for 1 month, everything that they got that was plastic, they put in a box. Lays, Kurkure, Coke, Pepsi, chocolate or Cadbury's, whatever it is. And they put all of this in a box, and then they found that 3 companies contributed most of the wrapping. They put all the wrappers in a box and they mailed them to the companies, and they said, we like your products very much. We like eating them, but this is too much plastic for us. Can you please, we are children, we want to save the planet. Can you please do something to improve the packaging? Media covered this very widely. The companies did not respond, but think if all the colleges across India did it together, then what will happen? then you're going beyond the individual and forcing the companies to act, right? So we need to find education in ways that takes us beyond the individual to the community. Now, coming to sustainability education at the India level, where does this go into school curriculum? We, again at Azim Premji University, we did a study of the high school curriculum, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. What we found is, like I said, climate change, biodiversity loss, air pollution are what we call existential issues. Air pollution made Delhi schools close for 1 week. I recently heard from somebody doing air pollution studies on Bombay that Bombay was more polluted than Delhi last week. We don't hear about that. Bombay schools haven't closed. But children in Bombay are having health breathing problems. So these are things that children should be learning about. But our science curriculum is outdated and we don't really learn about any of these things. We learn about very outdated concepts. Even in terms of climate science, what we learn is 5, 6, 10 years out of date. The social sciences curriculum is better. It's a little more integrated. But what we found was the best chance to connect to students emotionally and make them understand is literature and Indian languages. A good poem by a Hindi poet or a Marathi poet or an Odia poet or a Kannada poet. That gives you a connection in a way that you can read all the science, but it will not make you want to act. So humanities, painting, art, outreach, these are the ways to connect with children that we need to do. And in fact, Silra is really doing a lot of very innovative things out there to help children connect to sustainability education. So this is where we are looking at. So next slide. I want to give you 2 examples and I'll conclude. One is a booklet that we wrote with for Pratham books. And this has now been translated into 6 languages. And it will be slowly translated into more different languages. It's a very simple book. It's called So Many Leaves. And can you move to the next? It gives you, this is a slide from this. It talks about from a huge banana leaf to a very tiny tamarind leaf, which is smaller than my fingernail. You know, how do we look at the leaves around us? Something we've always seen, we don't pay attention to. Some leaves are hairy. Some leaves are smooth. Some leaves are pokey. Some leaves are soft. Some leaves are huge. Some are tiny. Some are bitter. Some are sweet. Right? So with this, teachers can teach physics. Why are leaves hairy and why are not? Chemistry. Why are they bitter? Why are they sweet? Ecology and evolution. Why do some leaves have thorns so that goats don't eat them? Why are some leaves long and thorny to preserve water? So you understand about transpiration, right? In fact, I see some people are interested. Pratham Books has this on Story Weaver. So it's online, it's free. Any school around the world can access all the books on Pratham Story Weaver. And you should do this if you haven't, because there's some fantastic books on sustainability there. So the next slide. A second initiative we did was to look at Gundutopes, which are these wooded groves, which used to be across Karnataka. Now many of them have disappeared. So we wrote a small story, my colleague Seema Mundoli and I, the previous book and this. This was also published by Azim Premji University. It's bilingual. It is Kannada and it's English. And it's very simple. We just talk about a tree meeting a woman. Lakshmamma was a village woman. She sits down next to Marana, who's a tree, and they talk about how the village has changed. We were able to print 6,500 copies, which have gone to all rural schools across Karnataka. Right? So across Karnataka, 6,500 panchayat schools have the book, have a little teaching booklet, so teachers can take students into the grove and do activities with them. Look at the birds, look at the trees. Ask your grandparents if they cooked with any of these leaves. Okay, find out if there are any gods in these trees. If there are gods, what are the stories of your village gods? Were there lakes around next to these trees? Have they disappeared? Can you restore these? Can you plant new trees? And now the Karnataka government is working to see if there's a Mahatma Gandhi rural employment scheme. Can that be used for Gundutop restoration? So that these kinds of village groves next to village schools can come up across Karnataka. And this is the kind of sustainability education we think we need. It addresses finitude, it addresses fairness, it addresses fragility, but through art, through science, through social science, and most importantly, through joy. Because sustainability, and that's my last point, sustainability otherwise can be a very sad and dismal and joyless thing. Climate change, biodiversity, air pollution, we will all die in a few years, the world is going to be, it can paralyze you. We have to make it joyful. If you make it joyful, we can act and we can be the change that we want to see. So with that, thank you, Anandi, for linking to the book. Please go and read it and share it with other people. Remember, it's there in multiple languages also. And I will stop here, and any questions, if there is time, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Hari Nagendra, for a great session. Now let's open the floor for questions. Sherlyn Sheba says, what are some immediate areas in which work can start?
The best area that I can think of is to find out what your locality needs. Some places need trees. Some places need garbage collection. Some places need better public transport. And when you to find out what your area needs, it's very important to find out what do the poor in your area need. So go outside. I mean, not just your apartment. We tend to talk to people like us, but I think India is mixed enough that you will see this inequality anywhere. So what do different kinds of people need? Make that list and start with something that is easy to fix. Again, I'm coming back to the joy example. We can always start with something very difficult to fix. We lose motivation. We must have our little daily wins. So start with something easy. One thing I have found is if you talk to your local corporator or MLA and you identify tree planting drives, they're usually willing to do it. Okay? Or recycling drives, they're usually willing to do it because it's easy. It doesn't cost anybody anything. If you start with removing encroachments from a lake, it's a very difficult task. So what do you need in your area and what is easy to start with? Start there. Then you get to know people and then you move on to the bigger things.
So yes, I think there is one more question from Fatima Taskin. How would addressing sustainability through education impact the world at large and also individuals?
Very important question. I think it's the issue of transforming mindsets that I was talking about. We are not giving sustainability the first place in our education system. Still, physics, chemistry, maths, biology have first place. And it's not that they are not important. I think what I'm seeing is in the next 5 years, if we haven't got sustainability fixed, we can't even have schools running. Schools will be flooded or air pollution will be there. These are existential challenges. So sustainability through education must first tell people that these are the most important things. In the next 10, 20 years, if we don't train all our children to address this and all our adults, we're not going to have a world that is livable for everyone.
Yes.